to episode 6 of the EMOTIVATION Podcast, where we put energy and motion towards mental freedom. On this podcast, we talk emotional intelligence, spread mental health awareness, and sometimes get a bit metaphysical and esoteric. Today's episode is part 5 of diving into the subconscious mind of an artist. If you haven't heard part 4, 3, 2, 1.
Exhibit A through 170 million.
Go ahead and go on my channel to the EMOTIVATION playlist and go ahead and take a listen to those. For those who haven't heard those episodes, or they have and they forgot what the hell these are about, here's a refresher. This segment particularly, I asked a question on all my social media platforms to my artist friends. The question was, what are your biggest struggles, insecurities, and fears as an artist? Today, my guest Lindsey and I are going to discuss each of your responses together. We have already discussed a few. We're going to continue down that same list. If you don't know already, Lindsey is a musician. She plays piano, she sings. She's also a dancer, a skilled intuitive, a dog trainer, and a hobby researcher of the mind. Thank you, Lindsey, for always being my guest. I love you.
And also me and Sabrina are very good friends and we love to catch up, and so we figured out that our conversations are very frivolous and entertaining, which is also great. So we decided to just start recording them, and eventually maybe we'll monetize them, mostly in a greedy and completely I'm hoping that we can get real deep dive and get bought out by everybody, especially since we're going into this new world of fascist communism, which by itself is asinine, but you know.
Girl, we can be famous. We could do whatever we want.
We're gonna get the YouTube fame like everybody else. Let's do it. Everyone wants to be YouTube famous. Oh, by the way, in my meditations, I'm writing down on my sticky notes as I was fumbling around confinement.
Confinement?
Yeah. Feeling confined. Which has to do with feeling trapped. It's like a further, sorry, this is also like a laser pen that could kill you. Oh my god! Wingardium Leviosa! Okay, anyways. It's a feeling of being trapped, and it is not too motivating. It's like people feel trapped for all sorts of reasons in their life, and especially the people I talked to recently that I shared our podcast with were aspiring artists, and they're like, oh, I'm just feeling so, and I'm like, trapped? Yeah, I'll take that with almond milk. Anyways, but it's like a feeling of confinement where we can't break out of our box and express ourselves artistically. And so it was one of the things that I wanted to touch on and tangent on so that we could further not get to our questions, which is also an ongoing problem for those of you who are not following this religiously. We can't stay on topic for anything.
I think we did good last time. And this,
our last one was good. Yeah, it was pretty good.
This time around I prepped in advance, and I wrote down notes just for 3 responses because I know we're gonna probably go on a long time over, because last time we covered 3 responses, right?
Something like that. I wasn't counting. Yeah. I can't.
So I just wrote out notes for 3 of them because I don't think we're gonna get past 3. So
okay. First off, before we even get to questions, let's start with tangents. You were going to say something, and then I was like, wait, introduce the podcast, because now this is something that's probably relevant. Sagittarius season, or currently, both of us are setting up better work environments, I guess, or?
Yeah, home environments, home work environments.
Yes, I just did, so I'm halfway through, actually, a procrastination library video, which is, short. I feel like they go over people's heads sometimes, but what it is it's one emotional awareness, and we define one word and kind of make a funny tangent about really childhood trauma and weird stuff and where the concepts come from. But the one that I'm making that is not fully edited yet is about resourcefulness, and it's basically kind of a funny thing about setting up comfort. But when you're working, you want to have your resources nearby you, and my resources, which are hilarious, all I'm doing is playing piano. So for me, it's just a blankie slippers, a tea. Like they're actually comfort items, but it's like if I'm singing, I want to have my water right there. It's about setting up kind of a system around you to make it easy to focus for a long period of time. And a lot of people, when we think about doing any kind of work, sometimes it comes with this like, oh, kind of looming energy, you know? And literally to help alleviate that is like the aspect of resourcefulness of like, how can I make my job easier on myself so that I can work harder doing it, you know?
Yeah.
And like, it's a funny little, I haven't finished it because I got to do my little cutout videos. I do little cutout examples in it and stuff, but like resourcefulness, my resources are my blankies and my teas.
That reminds me of that time that I was telling you how it's helpful to like have a routine of setting up your space and your environment. I remember we learned the term mise en place, like because
Oh yes, except I already forgot them. Go ahead.
in cooking, mise en place is when you get all of your ingredients ready to go, like measured out and like laid out all on the table. And then I related it back to like when I work out, I have this system of where I turn on all of my like lights in the room. I lay down my mat. Sometimes I set out my blocks. Lately in the morning, I've been taking these classes that require resistance bands, 5-pound dumbbells, and sliders. So I like in the morning, I lay out my mat and then I lay all of that stuff out and everything. And it's kind of like a routine. And like
You're ready and excited about the work that you're going to do. It's like gets you prepped and ready and not so like thrown into it almost. What have you been doing with your work environment? I could tell you all of my new gadgets. It's a mess over here.
With my work environment, I guess, well, my professional work environment, it's not really much. I think every single day what makes me feel I guess it's what brings me comfort, which is usually like a cup of coffee on the side.
Because we need to start introducing you as well, because I sit and brag and name drop you everywhere. You're a professional artist in Hollywood working on all of the biggest, fanciest shows. So I'm sorry, you bring your coffee to work, to your Hollywood work.
I maybe worked on one fancy show, but I don't know about the others.
You worked on like 8 fancy shows. Literally every show on Netflix. You're like, oh yeah, I did that one. And I'm like,
but they're not fancy. I mean, in my opinion, I don't know. I hope whoever's watching not
Rick and Morty.
That's probably the only like it's not fancy, but like
did you
it's
do
popular.
Adventure Time? Did you do Adventure Time? Am I allowed to name drop? I thought you did Adventure Time.
I was an intern on season 5. I was responsible for a few things. There's this episode of Adventure Time. It's called James Baxter, and they had James Baxter, the animator. He's an animator, like a famous animator. Like he worked on a lot of the old Disney films, and he what he did. They had him traditionally animate this horse on a ball in the episode, and he did it all by hand. And it was my job as an intern to scan every single one of his hand drawings. And I remember we didn't have a Lightbox scan set up, so we had to rig one on our printer, because animation paper is very specific. Like it has like these holes for the pegs, so that way it doesn't move out of place when you draw frame by frame. So I had to get one of those pegs, tape it onto the printer, the scanner, and then I had to like scan each frame, which is a piece of paper, frame by frame by frame or whatever. And he did like maybe, I don't know, like 500 frames worth of an animation or something. I don't remember what the exact number was, but I remember I was there all day one day because they needed it fast. And then I think I showed up really early in the morning the next day. Like I showed up at like 6 a.m. or something before the whole entire crew was even there. And I was scanning all of it, and I got it done in time and everything for them. And they're like, wow, thanks for like, I told them I could do free time for them. I don't know, did they? I think they ended up paying me anyways. But I told them I don't mind because it was so much fun being there for me.
Doing 300 million scans and copies was so much, dude.
I had fun doing it. I don't know. And then also just like seeing the drawings like and holding them. I was like, ah.
Oh, okay. I now see what happened. Your fangirl complex took over what paycheck you should have been receiving.
Yeah.
Like, I touched his drawings. Which, by the way,
I think the producer was like, no, like, if you're gonna like do this and help us out for this, like, no, you're getting paid. She was really cool. She was Kelly Cruz. She was a good producer.
Dude, I think it's so funny. You are one of my name dropping people, and I also have one other client that I'm working with right now that just got like signed on a movie and a TV show or something that she's doing like with high up. She's told me not to talk about it, so obviously releasing it on a podcast is not cool. But I was joking. I was like, dude, I love fangirl complex. It's so funny. And when my fangirl complex takes over, I laugh my ass off because I'm just like, let it ride out, man. If you admire for someone for no reason and they have no idea who you are, just get crazy. Make a binder, High School Musical, that crap, all up in a locker, create a locker at home to make a shrine about this person. Get the hair, get the fingernail clippings, make it go, because it will wear out is the thing, and you're only going to have this memory of being crazy once. So anyways, I lived with you, so I didn't have to have your hair and nail trimmings because they were attached to you. And you were kind of attached to my house, so.
Well, and you weren't really like you didn't watch Rick and Morty or something.
I didn't know. It was really funny. I never watched Rick and Morty, so I didn't understand it. I was like, okay. Anyways, I just didn't care. And then finally, when I saw Rick and Morty for the first time, which I think was once I was in Vegas, I was like, oh my god, that's the cat's butt you were designing. I always remember the cat's butt and Pickle Rick.
I know exactly what designs you're talking about.
I remember like waltzing into your room as you're like doing all these things. Our dogs are chewing on each other, and I'm like, don't you have something more important to do? It would be me.
Oh yeah, because I did a lot of working from home on that season.
Yeah, and now you have COVID, so you definitely have to work from home, which is so exciting. Dude, I'm so excited. I think COVID is going to be the best thing for artists ever. I have a lot of like economic prophecies in my brain brewing around that I've been like throwing around. Okay, so this is just like economically what I'm seeing is that COVID is reducing middle class because we've shut down all these businesses, and there was a lot of middle management that is like no longer having jobs or full time, or they're reallocating finances and like all sorts of things within these businesses. So there are people that the younger generation tend to resent that have like a fairly decent wage, and especially here in Vegas, like working for the casinos and stuff, like middle management, done, like gone. And I know one woman I do dog training and stuff for, she works with a man who was like doing a lot of event planning through like the Thomas and Mack Center. And she was like, oh yeah, they just told him like 20 hours a week and we're cutting your wage in half. Like how businesses are going about to compensate for the loss that's happened over COVID is like just destroying people's wage. And what's interesting is like I've worked for myself for a very long time, and you have a very niche like job as well that's like doesn't seem like it's going away anytime soon, obviously. But these people who have been part of these business systems are going to have to get creative. And creative, yeah, we think about being art, but really, like, as we've talked about, anything is creative. And I'm very excited because I think what millennials and the generation after walking into this job market where people are like, here, I'm giving you a starting wage. And you're like, wow, I can barely eat with this. Gee, thanks. Like at most when you think about most starting wage jobs, now the middle class, like it's just like completely erasing this kind of tier system that we had, and people are going to start their own businesses because they're not going to have a choice. They're going to have to think about like what they can do on the side. Like all of our entrepreneurs, here is the time you can take off. And I'm actually hoping, because I've finally started developing a practice routine, as we'll talk about how to stay motivated, is like my practice routine is taking off because I finally got a mic and I can hear myself singing, and it's so exciting. And anyways, and like I'm hoping to have a set list so that when a business is open back up, I can like slide in there as a new musician and start performing to bring in business. Like it's going to be a market for us, Yeah. Hopefully there's a lot of younger generations that's thinking about this, because I know a lot of people who either are stuck on unemployment or they're like freshly new to the working world, like meaning like freshly close to high school and stuff, where they're just getting out, recognizing that like, oh, the world doesn't work. They said it did, but it doesn't, and they're having to figure out what they want to do, like a few of our listeners that I know were like, I don't know, I have all these ideas, but I can't get the bank loan. And I'm like, yeah, I can't get the bank loan. Millennials were the first people who understood like the financial, like economic crisis. And then we're having all these new people come in, and that's where we can, if you start to develop yourself and your product and whatever, like we're going to take over the world. It's going to be great.
Yeah. If, I don't know, I guess I can offer this out there. Maybe I'll have my sister on for a podcast episode. If anybody's ever interested in how like the money aspect or investment aspect goes for your own personal business. My sister, she started literally from scratch, and all she did was buy like items out of her pocket. She bought specific items off of Amazon, like specific tools that she knew she was going to need.
What does your sister do again? Review that.
She does piercings now, and she also does some beautician type stuff. So she does like microblading, she does facials and all of that. And then now she also does hand poke tattooing, which is a machine-free tattooing.
And she was a nurse before that, right? So she's got like medical
surgical tech, and she has a medical background and everything. She was in the medical field for years, and she couldn't stand it anymore. And she left the medical field, and she just one day was like, because I think she was in limbo or something with trying to go back to a certain job, but they were giving her the runaround. So she was like, you know what? I can do piercings, like, you know, she in surgical
myself.
Yeah, when she was a surgical tech, she like sewed people up anyways and punctured people anyways. Like that's what they do when they help the doctors and stuff. Like they actually assist the doctors in surgery. So she knows all this stuff already. It's a piece of cake to her, and she's really good at sterility too, at making sure everything's sterile. She knows all the procedures and everything. So she took that knowledge home, and I think all she did was take like a blood pathogen test or something like that, because I think that's the only certification that you need to do tattooing and piercings. Like she made sure she got her certification to do so. So she took the test, and then she got the certificate for it and all of that. And she just got all the setup. Like she got a bunch of jewelry. She got the tools that she needed. She got like a chair that she needed. Granted, it came out of her pocket, like from a credit card. But once you have all the tools that you need in the setup, that's when you start to pay out by like, you know, getting your clients, and then you start charging for the piercings a certain price so you make a profit and everything. But she buys all of the materials herself. She is like a one lady business.
Yeah.
So I think I'm gonna have her on for an episode, maybe to like inspire artists if they want to like sell their own, like, I don't know.
The other part of this is a little bit how to monetize it, and also keeping money integrity, because in this day and age, one thing that I think is interesting and that I've been assessing over getting my own YouTube going, and kind of where am I going with this, you know, because the YouTube platform is changing. Like it was this like boom, right? And everyone's got this like super quick cut, high energy, like low attention span videos coming out, and they try and get them sponsored, monetized. And it's not a problem to be sponsored, monetized, to be honest. I think that everyone actually should go for it. But then YouTubers get bought out by companies, you know, all the time.
Nowadays, it's impossible to be monetized on YouTube because they've like upped the standards.
So like Google bought it, which changed everything as well for all these YouTubers, because I think they used to be more direct line to the YouTuber.
Yeah, it's a lot more competitive now too. So if you want to be a monetized channel, you have to have at least 10,000 subscribers.
Yeah.
And then you have to have a certain amount of watch time or some. It's complicated. I still don't quite understand it, but I remember when I started up my other podcast with my other crew, the Animation Success Stories. Literally right when we started that podcast, they just upped the standards for monetization, and they like raised the amount of subscribers and views that you had to get.
Yeah.
And it sucks because like, I don't know, like it seems like every single app always has some algorithm where like you have to pay out of pocket or something to like promote yourself.
Everything's a business, and all you have to do is like get creative. What I've started thinking about is getting more local. Like that's actually my focus. Is I was like, oh, you know what? I don't care. My product actually isn't my YouTube videos. My product is my lessons and my performance. And
Yeah.
I'm planning is that I'm like, hey, if someone wants me to perform around town in Vegas, and here's the other thing is that I've recognized as a musician, I'm like, oh, I've actually got my stuff together professionally because like I'm not like a wild child, like especially in the acting industry and the music industry, like showing up on time is like not everybody does it, you know? And it's like if you can show up to work on time and you have a good product, then you can charge for it. And I think it'll just be interesting how things kind of start to recover from COVID and how they will recover, because it would not surprise me if people are hanging on for dear life to the unemployment instead of starting their own businesses. And I'm trying to monetize, like YouTube is an example of why you should hire me, because you get to know me through YouTube. You can get to know my personality and my integrity by the types of videos that I make. You know, it's like actually a trust exercise more.
Like a portfolio almost.
Yeah, pretty much. And
Yeah.
then the other thing too is I really had to come in, like into alignment with what am I trying to give people? Because originally I was like, well, people need to get to know me, but I don't actually want. It's not like I'm going to invest in YouTube for years because I'm trying to sell you something. That's not really me. But I was recognizing that I'm at a level where I can become a professional musician, but I'm not yet. And the level that I'm at right now is where most people quit. And I'm like, oh, I'm going to document this because I've never, like, this is my first microphone, you know, like I mean, you could say professional singer when I was gigging, you know, if you're getting paid for it, I guess. Yeah, professional singer and player. But it's not like I've been doing this for very long. So like that's more, I'm like, okay, cool. Documentation. That's more my thing. It's like a long-term, less like explosion excitement of YouTube. It's just like, this is where I'm going. And then, and really motivating other people who are also doing that same thing and just taking a different track too, because people are taking a different track than school. Again, like several examples are in my personal life where I'm like, yeah, you're kind of like ish in school, ish out of school. Like everyone's planning to graduate by 2075 because it's so expensive. Like back in the day, people's college was just paid for by their parents. Now nobody can afford it. Like that's what's funny is that like most parents aren't even taking out loans for their kids anymore, you know, because they're just like, yeah, we can't afford that, you know.
My mom took out a loan for me for my college because I was a minor when I went to college, when I signed up for college.
Cool.
So it was required for her to sign for a Parent Plus loan for me to, and obviously I didn't make her pay that off. She helped me pay it off quicker, like, you know, whenever she could, she threw some money towards it.
Sure.
But I lived at home
Yeah.
for a very long time, and I threw money at that, mostly that Parent Plus loan. I have like a regular student loan, and I had a Parent Plus loan. That Parent Plus loan had a high interest rate. It sucked. So I paid that off first, which took me living at home for a very long time, so I didn't have to pay rent or anything, and I just threw all of my paychecks towards that loan. And
Yeah.
then once I paid off, I was good to go. So now I just pay off my.
Now?
No, I still have my student loan, which I think is around like 12 to 13 grand left.
Not terrible. Cool. Good for you.
Yeah, not. I mean, I was at 100 grand to start.
Jeez, girl.
Yeah, it's a lot of money. It's a lot of money.
And at least you're able to like get it down. But yeah, there's so many circumstances where like a lot of the education systems, like especially for the generation even after, was it Gen Z? What's that next one that's coming about? It's like that's going to be interesting because these kids like aren't set up to. It's like the debt crisis is becoming more and more. It's just interesting what'll happen. Interesting is like my favorite word. Interesting. I don't have a wide vocabulary. Interesting. Okay. Anyways,
Fine.
this is the new world order, girl. Is it's going to be small people like all of us working together, and you and I doing a series of books for children, which is something that I want to do, where you make the art. I read the stories.
We wanted to do tarot.
I wanted. Oh my God, girl, that was such a great idea. I'm so glad that you edited that out so no one steals our idea. Pinky sprawl. We started getting creative, and then we came up with good ideas and didn't want our listeners to go off and start a business idea. We also are too lazy to and procrastinating to trademark our ideas. So
It was great. You guys missed it.
Yep. I also have to get more like I have to get better at reading traditional tarot card decks too. Like I'm getting there. And I mean, when I do my own readings, I can look at the deck and just get like messages. So that's usually what I just do is intuitively, you know. And I understand the 4 elements and stuff, but like I need to listen to other readers and see more of a general consensus and stuff so that when
seriously that path of like learning more about it, because the fact that you do just get like tons of messages, you hate this and you don't like hearing about it because you feel weird with it and everything, but I think it could be a business for you if you like really wanted to, like, to charge a amount of time, like an hour would be this much per session or something.
I have to figure it out because I've thought about it more than once, and I just haven't found. So, this is a good concept, by the way, to talk to artists about, is that if you know that you're like really driven to do something independently and you know you're onto something but you haven't refined it, that's exactly how I feel about like tarot card readings and like psychic stuff, is that like I for sure get an overwhelming amount of energy information from anyone that I meet. It's ridiculous, like for sure helpful to people. But I have found that the industry can be very distracting for centering yourself. So for example, and I have also had a lot of psychic intuitives help me, so it's nothing bad because you seek advice from a psychic intuitive. That isn't necessarily the problem. It's that I don't want to be and Teal Swan does a really great job of like always bringing it back to you. I don't know like how to do that, or I have like a certain guilt or a block somewhere that I'm becoming distracting from people spending time like centering themselves. I don't want them to seek it from me. I want to be able to bring them back to them. And I haven't understood that yet, because the other thing too is, and again, like not you, not me, but I do know like other examples of like a few people that I've seen, especially here in Vegas, that have like bought heavily into like conglomerate psychic units that are like on a corner, like a billion little psychics working there. They have to be like certified by the shop. And I'm like, this is very strange. How do you certify a psychic? Whoever brings in the most money? You know what I mean? It becomes convoluted. It becomes like evil is everywhere kind of thing. And the industry is real weird. I almost got hired as an astrologist, actually, at a shop here. And then I was like, okay, if it works out, I would love to, you know? Because again, with the messages, it was just kind of ran into someone who we hit it off really well. She asked the owner, I was like, I don't have a good feeling about this owner. There's something there. And then it was like a weird certification process. Like they wanted to like have an energy power over you. And it was like the authority complex that we talk about. I'm like, they don't have a healthy relationship that I could actually be prosperous under. It was just super weird. Well, I haven't melded.
For you though, I don't think you should work at a shop for it. I think it's for you, it should be like a situation where you have a setup, like you have like a price bundle for people, and then people book you on your website, and then you just do a Zoom session.
And also, I was going to say, too, tarot helps me a little bit with my guilt, because if I'm like, oh, it's a tarot card, it roots me. I'm terrible about being grounded. That's one of the things that I've had in the past, is I don't naturally stay grounded very well. So when I just like spew advice, sometimes I'm like, well, what's my advice versus someone else? Maybe I'm just getting energy high off of like giving people my opinion, because like it is a great ego trip to be spiritual, not gonna lie. But if it's a tarot card reading, it doesn't really matter. It's like, oh yeah, we pull the cards and you're just asking for what I see. I get such a clear vision that it's not about the person, it's about here. So exactly. It refocuses me. So yeah, I could totally do that. Anyone who wants a tarot card reading, hire me.
Yeah, you know what?
So probably
on this podcast, I think I'd like to do some actual like readings with Lindsey. We can do like full moon or new moon readings.
Can we do political readings? Oh my god, half of the viewers.
We want to get kicked off of YouTube, sure.
You know what's so cool though is that because you and I have similar political beliefs, and we're not going to even disclose any of that. But every time I look into it, obviously the more energetically peaceful you get, the less, like, what do I want to say, commanding that you get. So most people have a certain command over their opinion, like it has to be this way, or fear, attachment, ego, blah blah blah. There's an immediate consequence that you're like that you haven't quite worked through, blah blah blah. But if you like take a pan back, like a really really big pan back, you're like, wow, squabbles, none of this matters, you know. And if you can read the none of this matters, what you can get is the direction past whatever's happening right now, which is really what people want, like, and are looking for, is like, okay, past, like, what's past this? No, not just past, but like way past this, you know. How's cooking something? I know you just.
We're in a time where like it literally is like that, where everybody, it feels very intense and conflicting for people, and the division is like real, and the heat is high and everything.
Remember that has been awesome for me as I've been reading more and more books, like just books on everything. I want to get a book more on economy as well, but is that this is not the first time the world has been through this. Like, I forget how young we are, but like I was watching this documentary on the Roman Empire, and it was literally like the government failed and there was a bunch of people who protested, and I was like totally laughing my butt off, because I was like, oh my god, everyone's just hangry, like a bunch of hungry people in the street because they couldn't get their trades going, and like it was just a mess, right? And it was like, oh, everyone just got hangry and protested, and they were forced to fix it because the people like turned, you know. Whether the economy is working or not, it will be forced to fix itself because people are smart, like, because they're smart and they'll figure out what they have to do to eat, like, quite really, you know.
This conjunction that's happening on the 21st, they said, which Vedic astrologers are saying that this same exact like conjunction happens like a certain amount of time, or a certain amount of years, and they went back in time to see like when this specific conjunction happened before, and I'll link you some videos. They go into all these like events of U.S. history. If you live in the United States and you're watching, there's specific events that happened during the same exact type of conjunction of Jupiter and Saturn.
Well, yeah.
Because you learn that it basically those times are very similar to now. If you go back in history and you read into these specific historical points.
Especially the feelings that they're having. I'm reading these comic books. Listen, I learn a lot of things from comics, and I'm going to need no one to judge me for that, because they write in different time periods, and they also have like what makes it interesting and sucks you into these stories is that it's like the dynamics and the drama between people. And what's hilarious is that regardless of what time period you're in, almost all of our feelings, like our heart, our mind, our body, they function the same. Everyone is still the human race. So it's really funny to like recognize, I'm reading this one about it, like an empire or something. And it's all about how like the maidens in waiting and stuff that wait on the royalty will just gossip. And they're like using rumors to overshadow different rumors because they have to shift energetic focus, and they didn't have Facebook and they didn't have these things. And it was like, it's like all this political weirdness. And it's so funny because I'm like, doesn't matter what time you're in, doesn't matter what's happening. Everyone is just trying to control really how they feel. And that's like the only progress that happens in humanity actually has to do from the self, from within, is because that's when you find it, is you recognize that it's not the time period, it's not the president, Mr. President, it's not like any of this other ridiculous stuff that's happening out there. It's about your self perspective. And
I don't know, that's a whole existential like
going to existential. Have we even addressed a subject yet? That's fine. Okay. Now that we've spent 45 minutes talking esoterically, what is our first question that we're going to get to? You could cut that entire first half out if you want. That's fine. Except for the part where we cut out our perfectly amazing idea and then we shove it in our audience's face that they still don't know what it is.
I'll get creative. So it's the response that we left off at, in response to the question, what are your biggest fears, insecurities, and struggles as an artist? Someone sent a response saying comparison thinking.
Ooh, comparison thinking. This just came up for me. Comparative. Was I just talking to Kyle, or was I just talking to you about comparative thinking?
Do you want me to roll with this one first?
Yes, you go.
Okay. Because I wrote a lot of notes on this one.
Oh, good. You've prepared. I have not.
So I was listening to The Artist's Way, and it was so funny because I like left. It's on Audible. I have the book version and then also the Audible version, and I left my Audible on at a specific point in like chapter 3 or something, and I was just like, I'm just gonna push play and see if I can get any inspiration from this. And literally, as soon as I pushed play, like she was answering this response for me, and I was like, oh, that's insane. So I wrote some notes down. She spoke at a certain point about how a lot of people have this mindset where they start thinking like in a lack mindset, and they start thinking, oh, there's going to be others who are going to achieve my dreams or my goals faster and better than me, and or more than me, and I'm gonna be left behind, blah blah blah, or I'm not gonna get it because they get it first, blah blah blah. And she said these people should Julia Cameron, I keep saying Julia Cameron wrote how she says how instead of thinking like that, think, why don't you see it as there's another person out there that is showing evidence, or they're proving that your goals or your dreams can be done and they are possible. I also wrote, focus on evidence of your accomplishments. How you can do this, like you can actually make an exercise out of this where daily you actually write out. I think I spoke about this in the last episode, where you write positivity aspects, like journal positivity aspects, or you journal like victories every single day, or accomplishments. I wrote have some self-compassion, because this also is a form of childhood trauma that you may not also be realizing.
One understanding, like when you're confused and you haven't quite worked it out, just being like, oh, I haven't quite worked it out, I'm just allowed to be like kind of upset in this moment. That's
exactly. And we have all had to some degree this trauma instilled in us because of our school system, the whole socialization process. We have taught that you need to be at the top of your class to achieve this award, or to get to this prestigious college someday, or whatever. So we've always been taught to be competitive with one another. Same with sports. We've always been taught, we play sports at a very young age, and we've always been taught to be competitive, and the competitiveness is, it runs deep. And then also, if you go way back in time, it meant like if it was kind of like survival of the fittest.
I was gonna say that's what came up too, was survival.
Yeah, that's where it runs really, really deep in like ancestry and everything. And I wrote, every journey is unique and unlike any other. I know that sounds cliche, but it's true.
True, yeah.
Even if you compare every single celebrity out there, all of your favorite artists or whatever, you can see that their paths were all different. I wrote try to strive to be your best self, rather than being best out of others.
Yeah.
Keep aiming for that goal. That'll keep you motivated in the long run. I wrote, showing up for the work is all that matters, as long as you are showing up for your work, meaning as long as you keep continuously doing, creating.
That's an aspect of being consistent and committed, as well as that you show up even if you are having a hard day with it. Like you could cry through your whole work day and recognize that it's not like that every single day. That's part of that compassion process too.
Exactly. I'm gonna circle back to a point that I wrote up here. If you are struggling with this mindset a lot, I know eventually I write about meditation. Meditation is useful for something like this because it helps you grow awareness of the negative thinking. So try a meditative practice.
Ask yourself the question, other than just, of course, like us and podcasts and blah, 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 and like outside words, but ask your inside words too.
Yeah. And you can do this by, like if no one's familiar with meditative practices, I always,
process.
huh?
Completion process. I'm like, let's just keep selling this woman's book.
Teal
Swan. Both of us have serious fangirl syndrome.
I actually just bought a book. It's called 70. Oh, let me get it. It's right over here. Hold on. I'm gonna get it.
Okay.
I just bought 2 new books. But this one is if no one's familiar with meditation or like what's a great successful way to meditate or whatever, because meditation is like it's broad. Like you can meditate in multiple different ways. This book is called Practicing Mindfulness: 75 Essential Meditations to Reduce Stress, Improve Mental Health, and Find Peace in the Everyday. It's by Matthew Sockolov or whatever. Sorry, I can't pronounce the name. But this book has literally 75 meditations, and it just gives you directions on how. It has a name of the meditation, and it gives you the step-by-step directions of how to do that type of meditation.
Also, on the meditation, a note to add too is for me, meditation, that was one of the things I had a hard time because I felt that there was a point where outside words became distracting. This is one of the things I'm trying to work out with, like being a psychic or whatever. If people wanted like tarot readings. If you ask yourself, like, you can ask your body, your mind, and your heart questions, and they will answer. And each one of them will have a different answer as well. That's part of the integration process. So if you're having body shame and you ask your body why, wait, and the words will happen. And you'll be surprised. And that's part of what journaling is about, is it helps actually write down and express out your own meditation. So that's another thing, like if you're on the road and you're trying to practice being more focused and figuring yourself out and establishing your sense of self and what it is that you think, literally start asking yourself questions. That's where it started for me, is I learned how to meditate just by asking myself questions like, what do I think about this? And listening to my own opinion. That's part of practicing meditation, is literally putting it into an action, which is like sitting in your silence and starting to direct your own self-silence, you know?
Yeah. It's funny that you mentioned writing things out, because in The Artist's Way, Julia Cameron talks about morning pages, where the first thing you do as soon as you get up in the morning is just write. I think I mentioned this before already, but the power of morning pages is if you are having all these negative thoughts, and obviously these thoughts are there to tell you something, don't ignore it, don't suppress it. It's helpful to get it all out on paper and just be honest with it, and clear with yourself. And you'll notice when you actually spend the time, it is like a meditation, because you are like kind of observing your thoughts in your mind and you're writing it all out. At some point you'll kind of feel like, all right, I got that out, I got that off my chest, and then you'll feel a little bit more clear.
What else did you have on comparison? How to say comparison?
I did also write through meditation or physical movement, try getting out of your headspace and into your body, because you said you can ask questions to your mind, to your heart. So that is also another solution. Oftentimes when we have a lot of negative thinking, we're too stuck in our mind, in our headspace.
Yeah.
So figuring out a way where you can get into your body, and obviously things like exercise can help with that. Are you getting a lot of text messages?
My entire family is blowing up and they're like, wow, great job on your recording, Lens. Oh, we're so proud. I'm like, thanks, Mom.
I will.
Go to our comparison thing really quick. We went on our meditation tangent. Please go back to comparison.
So, the last few things that I have here, I wrote, make sure you surround yourself with a support system, because it is possible to kind of like misery loves company, right? So if you're surrounding yourself with people that are either making you feel like crap, I caught myself.
Good job.
Crap
Put that on the air.
yourself, or if you're surrounding yourself with other people who are also always caught up with comparison thinking and all of that, and you're not surrounding yourself with enough people that appreciate you and your hard work, and they can see your accomplishments and point it out to you, or just be like cheerleaders for you, you know, and be happy for you every step of the way. It's key to have those people around. I wrote limit social media, obviously, especially if you're going to play these mind games with yourself and you know you're going to do it every single time that you jump on social media. And I wrote, tell yourself consistently when you are on social media that everyone began somewhere.
Right.
Like everyone begins somewhere, and it doesn't matter how old you are. Like, not everybody has to come out of the womb and start that, whatever you're, I don't know, looking at the whole talent or aspect of things, or artistic.
Not everyone, I know that I was, but not everyone was born an Instagram model. But I can't just say I was lucky, you know what I'm saying?
And to that, I wrote, credibility lies with you, not the amount of money that you make off of your art or the approval or fame that you claim from others.
That's also that's a really good point about the credibility lying with you, because that's not taught to us at all, especially when you have such a credential-based society.
Yeah.
It's really difficult to be like, yeah, credibility lies with me until I can't get my, you know, my certificate of medicine to become a doctor. You know what I mean? Like, but there are plenty of people who go through those programs and then they go on afterwards to support what it is that they learned, which isn't always that the medical community was right. There's so many brilliant doctors right now that are like, I got my doctorate and I realized that everything I was taught was wrong. So I developed this institute of, you know, it's like, or I wrote this book on, you know.
Yeah, or sometimes people don't even do anything with their degrees, but they still have that knowledge. You know, I mean, look at Jenna Marbles. Doesn't she have like a psych degree or something like that?
I'm a sign language interpreter, and look, I'm still doing nothing with that.
It doesn't mean that you don't have like credibility for it. You know what I mean? Like,
actually exceptionally useful when dealing with nonverbal autistic students, because they're so gestural, and I'm just like, oh yes, I understand what's going on. We just like, it's more gestural than it is sign language, but it's like I communicate very well like with my special needs students because I'm like master in deaf communications.
that's
Well,
a great
master. That made it sound like the wrong thing. I have my EIPA interpreting certificate, which is less than an associate's. There you go.
That's something though.
Technically, I'm supposed to have an associate's, but I took the certification program and passed, so I dropped out of my associate's.
I feel like degrees at some point, or sooner rather than later, are going to not mean a thing.
They're going down with the rest of the old order of things. Here's what I wrote for comparison. So if you were going to define, when I started to like the definition process of comparison in my brain, the biggest thing that came to mind in the way that we are using it here is a comparative, because what was the question? Read it one more time for me.
What are your biggest insecurities, struggles, and fears as an artist? And their struggle is comparison thinking.
So comparative thinking, okay, everybody does it, and I think that it is a natural order of things. I'm dropping my pen, to which I like to fidget. It's a natural order of things when we think about the universe being designed in a way of mirrors, meaning that like your focus is what you attract, right? Comparative thinking is normal. What most people have an issue is when it's exercised in a negative way, which is I compare myself and then the meaning that I put behind it is negative. Now, for me, in my situation, the first thing that showed up when I thought about comparison thinking was jealousy, which is actually an anger response. But you can also have like subservience, which is like I compared myself and then put myself down. Sometimes you even have like when you think, Kyle was just talking about this because he's a longboarder, and he was talking about he's old enough now where like younger generations coming in and starting to compare themselves to him as an older, more masterful skill level. And he's like, oh, this is so weird. And they become like subservient, which is like an admiration. They become admirable to him, but then they also at the same time like put themselves down because they feel like a weight on top of them the minute they pedestal this other person. Okay. So that comparative thinking, understand the organization that you have as a result when you start comparing. In my circumstance, and I think in a lot of women's circumstance, we get jealousy, which is like an angered response to them to someone being better than us. And for me, doing my piano with Johnny journey, which I'm documenting, the first time I came in contact with the piano with Johnny journey, it actually made me angry. I would get like agitated and fidgety, like not in my normal like Lindsey fidget way, but like in a way that I couldn't watch his videos for more than a few minutes at a time because it would trigger me so emotionally into what I hadn't done with my life and how much time I had wasted and self-criticism, blah, 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 blah. The list goes on. So it comes down to like what I was resonating mostly with was jealousy. And by the way, to define jealousy is when someone has something that you extremely want and extremely don't want at the same time. And what I have found when I worked through my like jealousy journey was that everyone knows usually what it is that this person has that they want, and they're angry because they like think that they don't want it, but it's usually like a repressed aspect of yourself. So for me with Piano with Johnny, I saw that he was like flamboyantly explosively, and I don't mean that like I just mean expressive, like super expressive, creative, artistic, like boom, explosive on the keys. And I remember feeling that way, and the contrast of not feeling that way anymore compared me, like my self-criticism put me down, and I got angry. And then the other aspect that I never saw was actually what I didn't want from his projection. And it wasn't a criticism like, oh, I want to play like this and I don't want to play like him. It actually came down a little bit to how he expresses on the piano. It's just not me. It's literally not bad. It's literally like, oh, he plays more ragtime and I think I like blues more. Like, it's just like a preference. There is absolutely no criticism to be given other than a direction to be had. And what I would say when you're having comparative thinking, you were like, yeah, stay off social media. I'm like, yes, I would agree with you there, which is decrease the practice habit of of your entitlement to your jealousy. Meaning, don't go on social media and be, oh, this girl in the bikini is such a this, such a that. I'm putting down her sexuality because I'm exceptionally sexually repressed. That type of practice is going to be very harmful to you, because what you are doing is you're standing up for the anger that you have and you are inciting it and like continuing it and breeding it because you actually disapprove of it. You actually disapprove of it. And so you involve yourself in a self practice to help cover up your shame. Not talking about that. Okay. However, what I would say is, like, in my mind, I'm like, the only thing that helped me get over the Piano with Johnny thing, then I ended up buying his membership and I'm now on this like super inspired track, was to continue subjecting myself to it at a slow pace. And it had to do with an analyzation process of like, okay, I had to first recognize my comparative thinking. And then I actually boiled it down to like, why? Why am I comparatively thinking like this? And one of the things I had to do was actually release my expectation of performing like that. Like, deal with your disappointment, as we've talked about before. What if I never get to play like that? What if I never become like that I always wanted to and I never did? You have to give that up and recognize that, like, that's not your life path. Even if it became your life path, it's not your life path. Otherwise you'd be there, right? And that's what your self-criticism will tell you, is like, well, you're not there yet, you know, so you might as well, you know, you're not there, therefore it's not this, that, whatever. Once I was able to kind of get past that disappointment and also really tackling jealousy, I was able to acknowledge, oh, I actually admire this person. And the second part of recognizing what I didn't want, I started identifying with like my students and my teaching and the events that I put on for kids and how much fun I have with kids. I'm like, okay, I'm onto something here. And then breakfast piano, like, as I started getting my own direction, the jealousy became less and less because I became stronger in my own direction. And that takes time, and it also takes analyzation. So people were like, well, comparative thinking, how do I get out of it? I'm like, you don't get out of it, you get into it. And once you get into it, then you start looking forward to it. And what happens is when you meet someone, it becomes more collaborative. Like, what they know, you're like, oh shoot, I'm meeting like a super high up piano player, like if I met someone with super high up, I would probably get really excited because I'd be like, yeah, out of my way. I just want to watch what you're doing so I could steal it, bro. Like that's actually my example now, and that's what I would do with the piano players down at Don't Tell Mama. Is I used to be like really about it. I played a couple times on stage, and it was like a horrible experience because I was like, just do it, Lindsey, just get up there and blah! And I bombed their performance like literally halfway through. Stopped playing Africa and was like the Africa. Okay, stopped playing halfway through because I lost my place in the middle of a drunken bar, and everyone was like, oh, you can do it. Oh, you're so cute. And I was like, pity. This is the worst thing you could ever feel from an audience. Oh my God, I'm going to die. Okay. And like getting past that moment, like I was trying to force myself to play in comparison to this other person and like make it happen because then I would finally feel better because I was putting myself out there. Nah, I recognized that I wanted nothing to do with performing, because I didn't feel good about myself. And I just wanted to like watch and see what these people were doing. And that's where my enjoyment lied. And I would just watch and watch and watch. And I've watched those people probably for like 3 years on and off. And in the last month started actually putting to practice what I've seen. Like been able live real time, put to practice what I've seen, which is keeping up with random rhythms, improv things that I just kind of feel out and just kind of happen. Like, I don't even know how to explain it necessarily. But comparative thinking, get into it and really accept. You talked about too, having compassion for yourself. That's about accepting the monologue that does happen and not being mad at your self-criticisms, but realizing that they're there because you have such a deep desire and want, and your deep desire and want isn't being fulfilled right now. But that you have to come to contact. You have to come into like not contact, but like connection with the fact that everything happens for a good reason and a good timeline, and really ask yourself too, when you're feeling that sense of immediacy, which is really the comparative thinking, like I don't have that now, right? What is it that you think that if you had it right now you would feel better about? Because what I recognize too when I asked myself your internal questions, your meditative practice, right, is that like if I ask myself what is it that I would get right now, like back in the day I kind of thought that like when I played and I got like a certain amount of attention or applause, it would bring me the sense of alignment, but it wasn't like that. Like my best performances that I remember were improv on the spot, like didn't know that it was going to go that good. And then it just kind of did. And it was the feeling afterwards of like pulling it off, you know, but it didn't come from the crowd. It came from you. It came from yourself, you know? So part of patience is just like acknowledging and being compassionate towards yourself when you have those comparative mindsets, and like kind of rolling with the punches and just slow it down, like really just slow it down. When you're dealing with that frustration in the moment, ask yourself the questions of why you need it now. And what you'll find is as you work out like whatever it is that you don't need it now, the minute you stop focusing on it, you're able to come to a point of attraction, and then your attraction point brings you down your direction place. Once you get your direction, the jealousy isn't really there because their direction doesn't feel like your direction. So it's like, oh, you know.
Yeah, it almost becomes irrelevant.
Yeah, it becomes pretty irrelevant, you know.
Yeah, detachment is a huge is a key word. And like you said, that's funny because I wrote that down too myself. Reevaluating or evaluating your limiting belief systems.
Mm-hmm.
Like, what meanings are you giving to yourself if you don't have this, or if you do have this but they don't have that, or they have this and you don't have that? What meanings are you attaching?
Good way to find out your own meaning is think about little kids. Why? Kids that always ask that, and apparently like parents get so frustrated they're just like, because I said so. Don't do that because I said so. Ask yourself that. Why? Yeah. When you get to a point of I don't know, that's great. That's great news. I have no idea. If you can sink into that feeling of like, I have no idea why I would want that. Yeah. Like, I want to become a fabulous player so I can share my product with the world. And then what? Why? Because then people could be motivated. Okay, great. And then what? Everyone's motivated. Well, I don't really know after that. Okay, good. Well, that you stopped you realized that like where it was going, you don't know. Okay, so that means that's not what I was getting out of it. What I actually have reconnected with, especially with my performance, is that like it has nothing to do with how other people feel. It has to do with how I feel. And in the last couple of weeks, like getting all this equipment set up and stuff, I've been really excited because I've been into how I feel. I don't think I've ever practiced consistently this much in years, where like every day I sit down. Remember, you're talking about the hour? I went over a death circle. When we talk about the death circle, just those 4 words. I did that for like 3 hours. Kyle had to come in and be like, I love you. I support your musical dreams. And I was like, sorry, did I beat it into my head yet? And he's like, you beat it into somebody's head. And I was like, oh, okay. I had everything plugged in so he can't even hear it, but he can just hear me singing like, used to get high, believing everything that is on the TV. Used to get high, believing everything that is on the TV. Used to get high, believing everything. I did, and it was because I couldn't get the actually the what was it? It was that rhythm, and I was like, ah! And I was like on fire, like get it. No, you didn't get it. Maybe if you just did you? I almost maybe you can't go to sleep now because then you don't have the muscle memory. Do it, focus. Like I was just getting like into it. I'm like, you will never practice again. You have made a YouTube series on procrastination. Do it. And I like death circled for hours, and it was amazing. And I also feel like I may have stepped my relationship back a couple months in progress.
Oh my god. I was gonna say, like, it's sad because at a young age, I think every child experiences this when they see something either taken from them or something that they want that they couldn't have or didn't get, but they saw somebody else get it or receive it. We even talked about this once before about the whole concept of sharing, how like we have unhealthy like boundaries and all that with that. But
well, and also we were all institutionalized, and we didn't have someone help coach us through what it meant. So we coached ourselves at 7 years old that when Johnny got the last granola bar at lunch and there wasn't enough for us, that it must be because I'm bad.
Yeah, or it can even come down to like your young stages of when you first had a crush on someone and they didn't like you back, and then you came up with all of these reasons as to why you weren't good enough. Maybe I'm not pretty enough. Like, and then you saw the thing that they chose, the person that they chose over you. Like I'm kind of. This is like a loose example, but it's a very good example because you like tell yourself all these, reasons of why you didn't get it. You're not pretty. You're not. That person doesn't like you. You're not pretty enough. You're not. I don't know. Funny enough. Talented enough. I don't know. Whatever.
Your mind always wants to put a reason to why something is or isn't, and it's like understanding is what brings the heart satisfaction, and we are willing to put ourselves down if that will just give us a reason. You know what I mean? Just a reason why it's happening.
It's funny because we always focus on like one lens of approval too. Like we'll seek approval from like one source without realizing that like just because that one source doesn't approve of you or like you or whatever, doesn't see your potential, doesn't mean that there's other sources in the world that don't see your potential.
And also talking about that, we had said before too, finding your audience. You might have a different audience, and your audience should always be ebbing and flowing. You should, whoever your audience is today, once they've seen your show, expect them to leave. And that's okay. It doesn't mean they don't like you. It doesn't mean, doesn't mean it wasn't a good show. It's just like you should always be attracting new people, new audience, and more people to value your product. And like, especially in the beginning, that's hard when you don't feel like you have any attention or any listeners as well.
Yeah, and that's where we come back the whole, the credibility at the end of the day, you. So as long as you're enjoying the journey and the process, and you are working on the appreciation and the approval and the validation of yourself, and giving that to yourself, and loving yourself, it always comes back to self-love. The comparison thinking almost never becomes a thing. You're too busy like telling yourself how bad you are, and like even though you don't have this and this of what that person has, you love what you have and you think it's freaking awesome, and it's just as good. Everybody can succeed and be abundant together, you know? There's not a lack of abundance.
So, also what you love about yourself, just know that like we can give you a lot of ideas based on things that we have already done, obviously, but no one will ever be able to coach you through your self-love except for you. You can read his books and always borrow the ideas and always borrow the thing. It's like you can get direction, but as far as understanding what you value about yourself, no one will ever be able to teach you. And I think part of comparison is that comparative thinking is when you see somebody else really loving themselves and expressing that love in a certain way. Even if you see, like, we talk about, like, Instagram models, like, they're kind of like, shit on a little bit, but, like, what makes an Instagram model so hurtful is that there is a huge consciousness of body hating, and we see someone who's loving their body. That's really what it is. When you see body art, which is someone in the silhouette of the sky in a bikini, you know, it's like really what you're seeing is an expression of the body. And it's so shamed and so put down and so such an underdeveloped appreciation that a lot of times, like, that is where comparative thinking starts. But it's with everything, and it always has to do with self-expression of that block. If you feel blocked, it's like the opposite of being able to express it, right? And as you become more and more unblocked, you have to recognize like what it is that makes you expressive. I'm going to give an example because I think this guy may be one of our new listeners, and this is super funny. I won't use his name because I probably forgot it already. Anyways, he's one of the guys who works at the coffee shop I frequent all the time here. And talking about energy, like first impressions, right? When I came into this guy, I was like, I don't know where you came from, but I'm happy you're here because I feel like this person has made whatever, especially his last employment job, whatever that was, it was like a disaster. And I don't know what it was. Nobody's previous job, you don't have to be a psychic to know that usually the previous job that you left wasn't like hunky-dory, you know? You usually left for a reason. But he was kind of like fiery and pretty outspoken and almost like rudely so. Like I can tell that kind of stuff would set off the wrong person. I loved it because it was so authentic. I don't care. And it's not rude. It's just like he's like a jokester. And I'm like, what? Because my mind is in the gutter. I am the dirtiest, most horribly minded human being when it talks about like jokes and tricks. Like I don't like actively go there in general society, but like if someone wants to go there and be like obnoxious, I'm straight there with you, man, because it's all fun and games.
In a
right?
professional setting, that's so rare nowadays.
Yeah. The older you get, the more serious you have to be, because the older you get, the more people struggle with their own internal monologue and self-criticisms. The older you get, the more people are triggered. They think the younger generation is sensitive. I'm like, no. The younger generation is the one that's being in tune with their feelings and becoming and is outspoken about them. The older you get, the more you accept your own misery. And this guy, I'm just like, what is it, this guy? And like, it's so funny is I don't even know if I get half of his jokes, to be honest. I just find it entertaining that he's so expressive because he's in a place where he's like, no. He's made that F you button push, which is like, no, F this. I want to do me. And he's a little bit feisty about it. Like that's where his energy is at. He's a little feisty. And I love that because I think that's the only reason I've become happy is I've maintained that feistiness and that authenticity that he expresses. I love it. Like when he's there. It is even like distracting sometimes from my own self-practice because I'm very meditative and I don't care because it's so entertaining. It's just like, yeah, you're just like being you and you're like entering this world as a young adult, like ready to go, ready to find yourself and do your things. And you're just doing it and you don't even know you're doing it. You know, I think he feels probably a lot more like kind of like lost than he actually is, meaning like I've talked to him a few times and he's kind of like, yeah, I want to do things, you know, my way for business and this and that and whatever, and is having that independent streak. But I'm like, I don't even think you know how on it you are. You feel like you're not because you're working here, the coffee shop, and you're young and this and that. But like, you're on it because you're being yourself, and you're on it. And people like me who are older, like than he is, like 10 years older than he is, I'm like, I can see it because I was there, and I'm supportive of it because that's also how I've maintained my own happiness. And those people around you, like when you talk about surrounding yourself with people that you want, it's like you want to be around those energies that are supportive of that, even if they're triggering, because there's also triggering aspects like jealousy and stuff. That doesn't mean that the other person is not supportive. That just means you're being compared. But you want to spend time around that type of mentality where you can tell that other people see your worth, whether they work with you or not, you know.
And everybody has potential, like no matter who you are. I don't care, like the story that any down negative story you tell yourself. If you are a human being, you have potential no matter what. Even if you're an average person working at a coffee shop, you have potential. Like you're not going to be stuck there for the rest of your life if that's something that you don't want.
You also have to roll with the punches, because another thing too, when I was talking to this person, was he was trying to plan out his life. You gotta give that up, man, because it's never gonna go. Like when you're young, it's like, and then go to college, and then do this, and then you'll get married, and then it's like,
I want to give wiggle room for the. Sorry, we're gonna get existential here.
Yeah.
But you want to give wiggle room for the universe to manifest what you align with, what you truly want, or what's best for you. Because sometimes what you think, what you want, maybe it's not like the exact thing that's going to make you happy.
And that's why it's important to ask yourself those questions, going back to your meditative practices. Like, why do I think this? Why do I want this? And really asking yourself what it is, because there's a logic of why you want it, and it doesn't mean that it's not logical. But the emotional, heart-centered satisfaction that it brings you, you can get that without the thing. Once you separate it out, what's funny is that the better option comes in, which you didn't even know was an option until it's here. And then you're like, oh yeah, I'd rather have this one, you know?
Yeah, exactly.
Good. Okay, next question.
So I'm going to end this particular response on something I didn't even know I was going to mention at all. My therapist last week recommended these books to me, 2 books to me. One is called Atomic Habits. I forgot who it's by, but it's not near me right now. This one is near me. And it kind of goes in line with this, because it talks, this book, it's called Hardwiring Happiness by Rick Hanson. And it goes into how our minds have been evolved to, it says, our brains evolved to learn quickly from bad experiences, but slowly from good ones. And this book is all about rewiring your brain to actually, I don't want to say that you always have to think positive. I just want to train their minds to stop always being in the lack. Like it's okay to actually like pay attention to those negative thoughts, because obviously there's trauma there that you need to learn from. But it does help to have some like exercises at the end of the day to help you shift that focus of all these negative stories that you're telling yourself. So
even recognizing lack, by the way, just power to the younger people. Recognizing lack is a new concept. I have some friends that are like in their 60s, and it's just a concept that was never taught. That's kind of the mumbo jumbo of the younger generation.
Mindfulness isn't taught.
Yeah, like
thanks to YouTube, this stuff is actually getting to be mainstream knowledge now.
Meditation, yeah, a thing.
Yeah. So I it's funny because when you were getting your soup, I opened up to a random page, and it is a good thing to it's a good exercise to end this response on. I'm going to read off an exercise to help shift your lens, so to speak, or your focus, to see life more as an opportunity. You can create a positive experience by finding good facts in your current setting, finding good facts in recent events, finding good facts in ongoing conditions, finding good facts in your personal qualities, finding good facts in the past, anticipating good facts in the future, sharing the good with others, finding the good in the bad, caring about others, seeing good in the lives of others, imagining good facts, producing good facts, directly evoking a positive experience, and seeing life as an opportunity. Now, again, this is a whole like positive focus pill. I don't want you to like totally, completely like make this your life practice, because there is light in going down the route of seeing your shadows and those.
She says it really well, where she says the positive practice is like the 1.0 of spirituality, which is like, oh, we figured out how law of attraction works, and literally if I just don't, what they try to do with the positive practice is to not spiral, because there's the spiraling aspect of where you get overwhelmed and chaotic without direction. And that's exactly like what that practice is like aimed at, is to help unravel that a little bit. 2.0 is like when you talk about like finding the good aspect, it's like trying to shift your focus. The second point of that would be like when you are being triggered in an emotionally overloaded situation, and you can't get into a positive mindset because you are too busy being triggered. That's when you have like more compassion towards yourself, and you ask like, all right, what's going on here? Why is this happening? I am it's like not that I'm a horrible person, it's just I'm unable to focus positively. And if your life is going to, going down the toilet, and someone's like, you just need to have a positive outlook, like that's not the time and place for that method. But on the daily, like if you're trying to be a little more uplifting about yourself, try not to dwell. Or like I make jokes about wallowing, because I am the most guilty of the anxious mind spiralers, especially in my past, where I'm just like, whoa! Like spiraling is a thing, dude. But you shift that focus so you don't sit and wallow and just like, I guess I'm gonna shrivel up and die.
We kind of make comedy out of our wallowing a lot. Like, it's common for us to be like, it's okay. Like at home, I'm guilty of doing this with my man. Like we always just both call ourselves fat. We go, it's okay, we're just fat. And then like we send fat gifts to each other and stuff. We're like, we're just fat. And then we send gifts of us eating like donuts or something, or whatever, a character eating donuts or whatever. I don't know. No fat shaming here. I'm just saying, like, there are times that we just feel like crap and we feel like a big balloon. Like no one likes to feel like a,
Yeah.
So, yeah, and we
laugh. Being fat is more of a feeling.
Yeah, and it's
than it is
happy feeling, especially when you're on that time of the month. Like, that's all you feel. You just feel like a rock.
Well, right now I'm having horrible indigestion, and I don't know what it is that I ate.
Exactly. So it's common for us to kind of make fun of ourselves to some degree, and at some point it can get subconscious that we don't even realize that we're doing it.
Once past this new moon and I have woken up, everyone's gonna be like, what happened to Lindsey? She broke. Because especially the first 3 episodes, I was like, and then this one, I'm just like, it's a new moon.
You're still
Am I? Dude, I feel so low energy. I feel like at any point in time I could become like narcoleptically incapacitated, but that would be rude. So I'm trying to keep it together. Okay, what's our second question? Keep us on task. Sort of, kind of.
So the second response is, I'm gonna actually go back. The second response is, first year art student here. I know exactly what I want to do, but I fear not making it into the industry.
Wow, girl, you got to talk it out. This is all you.
Okay, so I mean, the industry I feel like it's
collapsing. Go ahead.
I feel like it's a limiting belief in itself, because everybody always thinks that they have to be in the industry and whatever they're, seeking to be successful,
Yep.
Um,
What is the industry? Define it.
I guess, for example,
Brad Pitt have to be in the same movie in order for it to be considered the industry?
so it has to be like, I guess, like corporate level degree, right? Like Hollywood is an industry,
Also, the thing that came to me was it's almost like it has to be sometimes a little bit, oh my gosh, what is the word I'm thinking? Institutionalized.
Let me read what the definition of industry.
Yeah. Because when I think about industry, I think sometimes like the word that comes to mind for me is in this institution. Oh my God, do I pray? I pray every single day for a revolution. Sorry, go ahead. In this institution. Oh, is that singing Ricky Bobby? Hey, yeah.
She keeps going now. You can hear him.
It's really, I love having this piano hooked up because at any point in time we could just take this to a sing-song level.
Yeah, and then Richard will always sing along with.
Okay, go ahead.
Songs.
Oh my God, I hit wrong notes. You know I can't stand it. I gotta get that
The
one.
fact that you know that by heart is just baffles me.
That was a party trick. It was just a party trick. All of them are party tricks. They're all party tricks. I used to go through whenever I would see random pianos and I was feeling horrible about myself. Does everyone know this opener?
Oh.
So you're like, oh, I do. You know that song? But yeah, I would just set you up for that big intro. And then I would just walk away. You're like, oh, there's this piano player at the Don't Tell Mamas there's this damn piano player at the Don't Tell Mamas. And I saw him perform and I loved it because he was like, no, crap. Oh, I don't actually know this song. I gotta look up the chords for Benny and the Jets. Whatever. But he would just sit on the opener and you'd be waiting for, there we go. That is the famous opener to Benny and the Jets. Jesus Christ. And he just sits on these chords in the beginning. And then at the bar was Michael Spadizzle Dazzle was just sitting here and the whole crowd was just waiting and he was like, no, we would just keep going, and we were like, all right, that's so funny, bro. Just play the damn song. And he was like, all right, guys, okay, here it is. But anyways, and he would just keep going. Funniest damn thing I've ever seen. It was so funny. I'm learning little comedy sections, but yeah.
So everyone, Lindsay's gonna play me all of my anime songs that I could never play in my childhood.
What?
That one's the easiest one.
I need the music for that one.
Okay, so before my iPad dies, I'm going to read the definition, the Google definition. See how legit we are? Yep. Google definition for industry.
Okay. ready.
It says economic activity concerned with the processing of raw materials and manufacture of goods in factories. And then the second definition of industry is hard work.
I really
I find that's funny.
First off, I got a question. Why does this person want to get into the industry? And number two, how are you still in the industry? I'm like, hard work already, I'm out.
Everyone listening, I want out of the industry.
Dude, I'm peddling laziness so hard. I'm thinking about getting a logo that's like lazy dog training because I'm like, dude, nobody wants to hold their dog at attention. I want to eat Cheetos on the couch and watch YouTube and have my dog not bark at the window.
You know, I follow someone on YouTube. Her YouTube is called Lazy Dancer Tips.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Amazing. I should probably do that same thing for piano. Just give up.
Or just have really basic exercises, you know, that super like, you know, if you don't want to think too hard today, focus on these 2 notes and watch how great you'll get.
Actually, you know what was super good? Actually, this was brilliant to me, which was if you're improvising, don't go with a super short progression. So just do like a. You just do 2-chord progression. 1, 2, 3, 2, 3. Back, 2, 3, and then you just don't go anywhere. You don't go to a chorus. No, you don't do anything. You just stay here. And then you call. See how long you can play before you sleep. I'm already there. Dude, this is like this is the most tired podcast I've ever had in my life. People are like, how do we stay motivated? I'm like, first off, you don't do anything on a new moon.
That's also another thing. Like moon phases, man.
Yeah. You know what's super funny? I had the most like pragmatic, logical dude ever. He was like, "Oh, astrology, you and your you know hippy dippy whatever." And I'm like, "It's not like you have to believe in it, Joe, bro. Okay." But how's the vet's hospital there on full moons? And he's like, "Oh my god, it's horrible. That's literally the only reason why I know the moon cycle." And I was like, Everybody gives birth on. Everyone gives birth and dies on full moons. Sorry.
If the listeners want a separate episode outside of this topic about the moon, and if you want me and Lindsey to have a whole spiel about the moon cycles and how you can actually manifest better, or I don't know, be more in flow or more in alignment with your life, or plan accordingly to the phases of the moon, because they do have an impact on your energy. We can talk about that. I have a whole book on it that I read from front to back about the moon phases. It's called Moon Magic by Diane Alquist or something like that. I excuse me for butchering names left and right today. Why does everyone have hard last names?
It's a new moon. It's a new moon. Blame everything on the new moon.
Okay. That person was born on the new moon, probably. Just kidding. Yeah, if you want that, comment down below. Maybe I'll do an episode about the moon. I am a moon child. After all, you know.
Yeah, we see all your moon shit. It's pretty cool.
Oh, my whole room is...
Oh, you need to sell that shirt everywhere, girl. On our Information Podcast website.
I'm not joking, people. Okay. I should move on. I feel like so unprofessional.
You'll have to edit this to like make our flow go better, or maybe we'll just keep it as it is and be like, sorry, this is very...
No, I was gonna say I feel so unprofessional that I keep reading from notes, but I'm gonna do it anyway.
Girl, I got my notepad. It's fine.
So for everyone if you haven't noticed yet, I like wrote down a bunch of notes. I think I mentioned this earlier, so I'm just gonna read from my notes. Remember that the industry is not an indicator or determining factor of your success. Let me speak an example. The animation industry, for example. obviously, if you're an art student studying animation and you want to get into the field of, working on cartoons, whether it be TV shows or movies, um, obviously your end goal is to land yourself on a production for a movie or a TV show, or I don't know, commercials whatsoever. It's mostly going to be, I know a lot of their people's dreams are to land them, animation students, a lot of their dreams are usually to land on a TV show or movie. Commercials is more so a way to get there. But remember this, famous shows, because I know everybody always has their dream show that they want to work on, especially when they're fresh out of college and that show is still going. They like aim to get on that show. Uh, Famous shows or shows in general, they come and they go. They have their highlight period, like for example, I know Adventure Time was super popular, but is Adventure Time still as popular as it was back then? No, I don't see like Adventure Time shoved down my throat left and right nowadays. I see other cartoons. And you have to remember that your personal art and your identity are forever. They will not come and go. When you do get laid off of that one show because it's done and you're on hiatus or whatever, the one thing that you always have to go back to is your personal identity and your art. You never want to make a name for yourself based on whatever you worked on,
Unless
because
me
that,
name dropping you all over town.
yeah, so oh no, I'm not agreeing with you, but I have this like life kind of crisis moment where like uh I felt like everybody, when I did blow up, I guess as far as like social media goes, when my name started getting tossed around more, um a lot of it was due to the fact that I got a job on a big show, which was Rick and Morty. And I did go through a period of my life where I was like, is is the show the reason? Is the me working on the show the reason why people, like, what am I without the show?
Right.
Would people still appreciate me and my art without the show? Like, what about it? And then I also, a lot of the people on our show, I noticed a lot of us like didn't draw on our free time. Some people did, but a lot of us didn't draw on our free time. So all we had on our like websites to post all the time was just the art that we did for the show. And that wasn't even our art. We always had to like go, oh, it's property of Adult Swim. It's property of Adult Swim. We had to like plaster that everywhere. And it was somebody else's project. And at the end of the day, when we had ourselves to go back to, like when the show would be over or something, I know it's still going. I'm not on the show anymore. Um, and there was a time period where I did have to like tell myself, this isn't your life. Being on this like a big famous show or whatever doesn't doesn't make you an artist. You're an artist beyond whatever the industry is. So just because you don't ever get, I'm not saying that you have to like shoot your dreams and with a bow and arrow, or kiss it goodbye of getting into the industry. I'm saying if you don't not call yourself an artist, or don't tell yourself that you're not successful or you're not good. um, I release attachments of the future too. We spoke about this previously. You limit your opportunities if you tell yourself, I will be successful and happy when I get this job or get on this show, etc., etc. Every path is different, and you might end up in the industry at some point, and it might be a different show. And who knows what that show, if that show is going to kick off or whatever. Like, I remember when I was applying for jobs, Rick and Morty wasn't even big yet. And I was trying to get on my favorite big shows at the time at Cartoon Network. And I couldn't get on them. There were, I think there was Adventure Time, Steven Universe, Clarence, like all these big shows that everyone was getting excited for. I didn't get on them, and I went to Rick and Morty, and it wasn't even big yet. And like, you just have to accept that every journey is different, and you will, even if you don't make it big, it doesn't mean that you're not big, as long as you're still producing your art at the end of the day, and you're enjoying your art, and it's great. Of course, we always want that love from others. I don't want you to always like focus on like the amount of followers and all of that or likes that you have or whatever, and that's your main goal. Because trust me when I say, when you do start ramping up and following on whatever social media platform that you get, you're never going to be satisfied. Some people, and you can see this when you ask people who do have like a ton of following. Like if you see somebody that has like, I don't know, 300,000 followers or subscribers on YouTube, they'll be like, yeah, sure. You know, if you talk to these people, they'll be like, yeah, sure, that's it's a lot, whatever. And you'll be like, wow, like, yeah, that is a lot. But then if you actually talk to this person more, like, they're never happy with the number. They're always gonna like shoot for that higher number. Like, you know, like a million would sound like better to them, you know. The grass is always greener on the other side. And where am I going with this? Oh, I also wrote vibrational matching is a thing. So trusting that your path is always for your higher good, which means take rejections as opening doors or blessings. I remember when I was applying for jobs at Cartoon Network, I remember I got rejected multiple times, and I, you know, almost got demotivated and discouraged and everything, and almost made it mean something about myself. But something always opened up on the other end for myself. Even when I didn't go back to Rick and Morty, like I had other opportunities pop up on the other end, on the other side, and for me, in the long run, they were environments that I was a lot happier with, and it was a lot healthier for me too. And you learn that as you go. So don't ever take a rejection or you getting fired from a job as like, oh, I'm a failure, and it has to always mean something negative. Because you'll see, no matter no matter what, for some reason the universe has always a way of working itself out for you. So, and I know that it's hard because this takes faith and trust, and that's also a practice, you know.
I said faith and trust in pixie dust.
And pixie dust.
That's absolutely brilliant, and also it's nice because you have like really like a physical experience in that field, and art is so highly competitive. Especially animation is something different. It's almost like I don't want to say it's non-comparison to music. The way that I would think about it is it's almost related to orchestra. Orchestra is very formal musical training. So a lot of people who get their master's degrees and stuff in music, a lot of it has to do with orchestras or like.
Don't you have to like you have like, for example, the Philharmonics or something, they have like opening job positions or roles that like rotate that you can apply to every once in a while.
Yeah, Hollywood Orchestra, like same.
Broadway,
yeah.
same thing. How they put on the same Broadway show, but they like interchange their actors every now and then.
Yeah.
Or they put on a new different take or something and rewrite the script in a completely different new way or something, and then they get a new cast or something. So everything it's an industry. Even with dance is also a thing. Like music videos, they go through the casting process every single time, you know. There's always an industry for any type of art out there.
Yeah, and industries too, like I think a lot of it is coming back down to like when you're a younger person and you're trying to get into an industry full of older people, that specifically a lot of times it's a little bit cutthroat is like what people are dealing with is like this, there's a strictness to it and an expectation to it, and how and something to think about when you were like, you know, disassociate the industry from that sense of self. Like people are identifying, I have to be in the industry in order to accomplish my dream because the dream will bring me the feeling. You have to get the feeling first, and then your feeling will then find your direction. I was a French hornist, a full ride scholarship French hornist, trying to get into the industry of music formally. And I didn't choose the path. Like that's like, you were able to get into that industry and your path led you there, and that's super cool. And you also are able to find those feelings. And I found those feelings by not going formally into the industry. And you can find it both ways. Like, you don't have to give up your dream of getting into the industry necessarily. You just have to try. It's really more of like an integrity issue of how to keep your integrity. And I think you said it very nicely, where it's like, you don't attach your sense of self to the rejection or the approval.
Yeah,
You
exactly.
you learn from it to further your own projection and expression of your art.
Yes.
Which is just a further,
I have I'm pretty sure I've mentioned this before. I have another podcast called Animation Success Stories, Ass Podcast. Uh, I'm not gonna bleep that one out because that's what it is. And that obviously that podcast came before this one, and it's all about us. Me and a few coworkers of mine. We're all from Rick and Morty. We interview people in the animation industry, and the whole point of the podcast is where we interview how they got to where they are today. So they just talk about their journey from childhood to now. And the reason why I wanted to have that podcast is because I wanted artists from all over the world to watch and listen to these people who made it into the industry and hear how vastly different their paths were. That we've had people that came from out of country that got into the industry in Los Angeles. We've had people who never went to college, you know. I really encourage people to every now and then just listen to other people's success stories to see, to again, to show that there's proof out there that you can do it too. Not to like be hard on yourself, but to show you that there is no one way of doing things. And I wanted to also add to something that you said earlier, because you said something about the industry being cutthroat. Um, it's funny because now that I'm older and I've been in the industry for a long time, I don't see it as that anymore. I see it as something that's like, I want to say something that's almost easy to me and like not as serious.
Mm-hmm.
But I feel like it's because when you're in school all of your life and you're in college, they do implant in your brain that you have to be super amazing, super professional, super formal to make it. Otherwise, like you're, homeless on the streets and you won't ever get a job or whatever. Like they make it sound cutthroat, more cutthroat to you in a sense where they just like strike a lot of fear in you if you fail. At least that's the experience that I got in college. They made it sound very, very competitive. They made it sound very impossible to get in almost. And they also made it sound like there's limited amount of jobs, and if you're lucky, you'll get one. But it's not a matter of luck at all. There's an abundance, a plethora of jobs out there, and whoever is putting this idea in your mind that there's very little and you have to be lucky in order to get in, they're projecting their own limiting beliefs onto you or their own skewed perspective, especially in this day and age with the digital age. Like, it's gotten bigger. Like more opportunities are growing because
Yeah.
there's more demand for everything and everyone wants something different. Sometimes people don't want to watch like what the industry has to offer. Sometimes we want to go to the independent creators because we're sick of the industry like shoving their own like same narratives down our throats. Like, I'm sorry, I don't really like a lot of TV shows anymore because I feel like there's just like they get kind of repetitive after a while. I'm like, I feel like I've seen this before,
Yep.
And then they have so much control over the creators that the creators even get unhappy. So, because they have like, they always like are like, no, you can't do this, you can't do this. We want you to do this, and they take so much control. And I love independent creators because they don't have any of that looming over them, you know? So look at your pros and your cons of being in the industry and not being in the industry, you know? Ask yourself too, if you're the type of person that like can work well either on your own or on a smaller team rather than because some people want to get in the industry, but they don't realize that they don't even like working on a team with a large amount of people. I'm learning that as I get older, that I want to have my own schedule, you know. Obviously everything is a learning process, and it's always a learning process of learning who you are as an artist and learning your boundaries and what you like and what you enjoy and all of this stuff. It's literally all self-discovery. Hence this podcast segment.
That was beautiful. I loved your tangent there. That was nice.
It was a relevant tangent.
It was very relevant.
So the last response that we got was the person submitted this response saying, I'm not good at backgrounds. They said backgrounds, I'm no bueno. Meaning, I think they're also another animation artist type of art where they want to get into the animation industry. And backgrounds are obviously the environment that you see in animation, whether it's movies or TV shows. It's always the backgrounds that the characters are inhabiting. And I wrote, what are you good at? This can apply to any industry. It doesn't have to be animation. It could be piano, or it could be music in general.
Sound. That's what I would tell that artist.
Yeah, like musicians, they'll be like, I'm not good at piano. Okay, then what are you good at? Like, are you good at singing? Are you good at playing guitar? Like, oh, you are? Great. There you go. You don't have to play piano.
Another thing too is you can set it as a goal. One thing I like to say is like, I'm not good at it yet. You know,
I wrote
yet. You know,
you can always get good at whatever you want to get good at. You can always grow your skill set in anything.
Yeah.
And that is, if you really believe that's not true, that recognize that is a limiting belief that you need to rework.
One thing I would say, because this does translate to music quite a bit, finding your sound and what you are or aren't good at. So number one, I played piano all my life. I've never taken a singing lesson in my life. I coach singing, which is ironic. And I ask one of my moms what to tell my singing students sometimes, because I started singing when I got divorced and trashed at a bar and went karaokeing. And I was like, I think I'm pretty good at this. And like, there are different social standings of singers, by the way. So there's like, oh, wow, you can carry a tune. Then there's like best at karaoke. Then there's pissed that you even attended karaoke because you just make everyone feel bad. Then there's, I'm no longer angry. I just don't even acknowledge that you're karaokeing because it's obvious that you're a musician. And then there's, are you a professional? So there's like different social rankings of like where you're at.
Karaoke.
Because now, well, I was gonna say not even. I play my ukulele at the park, and I like practice singing because it calms people down. Because dog parks are really tense. Anyone who's ever been to a dog park, people are just fired up and ready to shoot each other. And if you bring a ukulele, everyone chills out. And then also I get to practice keeping time because I can't keep time. And I practice my music and do my thing. And now, like, I regularly get asked, like, if I'm a professional musician, if I go karaokeing, if I go to the dog park, like, I regularly get asked that question in the last year, like, consistently, you know? And that is about finding, what was this question? Oh my God, you can tell I'm tired. What was the question about?
You're finding
backgrounds. Yes, thank you. So I never thought that I could sing. And then I figured out singing on my own time, but I never had like an anticipation to become a singer. I was like, oh, I'm a piano player, so it doesn't matter if I was a singer, whatever. And then I naturally got good over time. And then now I'm like, oh, my singing is almost the type of singing that I do sometimes is too powerful than what I'm able to play on the piano. So like when you talk about combining them and stuff, it's almost like, oh, that's interesting. Like now I almost come off as a singer more than I do a piano player, depending on what I'm playing, depending on the song and what it features more of. And, you know, just because you're not good at background, you can set it as a goal Like, oh, I'm so crap at background. But like in 10 years, you have no idea what your experience will bring you. And you also have no idea what your goals will bring you, because you can set your goal and just kind of, focus on your positive thinking and not put too much thought behind it. One day you wake up and you're like, oh, I guess I'm not too bad at background now that I've done all this, now that I have all this experience doing who knows what you've done in the last however amount of time, and finding your sound too also goes into like, what are you good at? So I have all sorts of goals about being able to play like fast and hard, like some fast, hard, high energy songs. And I can play some, but my sound right now is kind of like jazzy blues soul. And I didn't really know that like until I started gravitating towards what it is that I like most. And let yourself gravitate towards what you like most while also setting your goals. Like if that's not your strong suit, you can always make that joke, like, and hire someone who that's their strength. You don't have to have everything be your strength. You can always say like, that's one of my goals to get better at it, but let it be as it may. And then whatever it is that is your sound, as we call it in the musicians world, or whatever it is that is your focus, will start to come out because of what you spend your time on,
Yeah. And it's funny because with my first art job, I remember I shot for a character design position, and I didn't make it onto the team for character design, but they liked my cleanup a lot. They said that my cleanup was very good, and I was really good at doing turnarounds. So I wasn't so good at the designing aspect, but I was great at the technical aspect. And I got hired from my strengths of that. And I was going to say that this is also limiting belief in itself, because if you're looking to get into animation, this person specifically, and if you think that you have to be good at backgrounds, that's a lie, because there's so many jobs that entail otherwise. Like if you learn about the different departments of animation, there's a department that literally just does color. They just color things. There's sometimes a department that's just does cleanup. That's what I do now. And there's a department that does just character designs, and there's a department that does just props and effects. And there's a department that specifically does backgrounds. Usually backgrounds is like a dedicated department. It doesn't mean that you have to be well-rounded at absolutely everything. So I just wrote like, who says that you have to be good at backgrounds? Especially like, do you enjoy them too? That's another thing. If you don't enjoy them, then screw it. Like, you don't have to learn it,
I remember one time when you did that picture for my brother's wedding, you were like, oh, I'm so terrible at color. I hate color. And I was like, what? And you're like, that's not my department. And I was like, there's a department for it? What? It's so funny because you were like, I mean, it's really good, but the color. And I was like, what are you talking about? The color looks fine. And you're like, it's not my department. And I was like, I don't know what's happening.
I still tell people, I just recently did a commission this year too for somebody. They wanted me to do another wedding like drawing. And I did it, and I was getting excited because I thought I didn't have to do color. And then I sent her the sketch or whatever, and she asked like, oh, are you gonna color it? And I was like, ah, crap, because like that's like, for me, color, since it's not, I don't have to work that side of my brain all the time, because it's something that A, I don't enjoy, and B, it's something that I don't have to do on my job, for my job, so I don't feel so obligated to do it. Obviously, some people feel like they feel obligated to do it with their personal art because they feel like it's more complete if it has color. I don't know. There's a beauty in black and white art for me personally. I love black. But I was just so like, oh crap, I was so upset because I was like, this is gonna take a lot longer, and it did. It took, instead of like completing the commission within like 3 hours, it took the entire day for me, because I was like, great, because I get all perfectionist about color choices and stuff, and like also the style and all that. Like I just get too like perfectionist with my stuff. Like if I'm not liking it, then I get like anal about it and all that. But
Dude, I'm having like I have to do another video on this. It's really funny, but like because I'm arranging a lot of piano and voice songs, and I have a wedding. I probably don't have to do the wedding for another year and a half. They haven't even set a date yet. But it's funny because I have a really big insecurity about playing and singing, and all of my songs, I'm just like, we call them block chords. It doesn't matter what the song is. All of the songs are just like, just every single one is like a walking left hand, and I'm trying to add something, and I'm like, well, let me just add one more note. That doesn't make a difference. Nope, still sounds like block chords. Okay.
So singing the only thing. It sounds like a good singing kind of like.
Yeah, well, the thing is when you play 4 songs back to back and all of them are the same chords, I mean, you just have a different rhythm, right? A different tempo or a different set of chords, but all of them are block chords. I'm trying to get into like doing more runs and stuff in between, but it's hard to work on inflection runs in the voice and inflection runs in the hands at different times. It really messes me up. Like my brain can't do it yet. And I'm just working on rhythms right now. But like I'm having the same like perfectionistic things where I'm like, okay, if you're gonna arrange this song, you can't do block chords. And I'm like, but it's so easy when I do block chords. And it's like, no, you did block chords with your last 4 songs. Do something else. And I'm like, maybe I'll do some arpeggios. I'll do some arpeggios into some block chords. No block.
But sometimes simple is like amazing to people.
It
like
does, I was gonna say, like, it's totally your perfection. It's like the perfectionistic brain of your color, right? Like if you listen to any of my stuff, I just did like my little I'll send that over to you, the little video I took right before this of the first time I ran with all my mic and my piano hooked up straight direct line in with all the effects on it. And it sounds actually really great, you know? And it's just so funny though, because my brain is like, no, there are your block chords again. And everyone else is like, wow, that sounds great. Your voice is incredible. And I'm like, did you catch the block chords?
That's so funny because same with guitar. I don't know how to do runs on the guitar and sing at the same time. And I just don't know. I'm not really good at runs, period, on the guitar. There's some acoustic guitarists that are also singers that are freaking amazing at doing it all at once. But for me, I just do basic chords.
Your circle of death, girl.
And I do basic rhythms too. So if there's any like complicated like strumming patterns, you're away from those songs. And I'm like, I'm just gonna be happy with myself that I don't know how to play that song, and I probably never will. And I'm gonna just be okay with that and accept that. Or when songs have bar chords in it, I have this thing against bar chords.
I can't bar on my uke.
You probably, if compared to a guitar, barring on the uke is way easier than the freaking guitar, because I don't understand how.
Why do you think you got a uke and not a guitar?
I know, that's why I've wondered with this whole ukulele age that like came out of nowhere. People who really wanted to like learn guitar.
It's all of the losers who couldn't play their guitars, like me, just like me.
But it sounds like
I keep losing out teaching jobs because they're like, "Do you play guitar?" And I'm like, "No," and they're like, "I'm sorry, the position has been filled." I literally it was so funny. I filled out a job application for a private school that was like, "Are you a music teacher?" And I was like, "Yes, I am." And they're like, "Do you play piano?" And I was like, "Yeah." And they were like, "Are you Suzuki trained?" And I was like, hilarious, because there's only a handful of us, and yes, I am. I may have got this. And they were like, "Do you play guitar?" And I was like, "I don't, but I'm Suzuki trained." And they're like, "I'm sorry." Actually, you want to know what's funny is that I actually think I lost that job because they gave us a political survey beforehand, and they were like, "Oh, millennials." The entire survey was a political survey, and I was like,
that scares me. That's the thing about the industry too that I'm not going to get into in this episode, but I'm very frustrated that everything has become politicized, and it's not bleeping cool.
There you go, girl. There you go. Use those Christian words.
It's not fudging cool.
Sandy and fudges. Super cool, you guys. Jesus loves us, yes I know.
Yeah, and then you start to feel like, I don't know, like if everything's politicized and if you agree with everything, then great. But if you're one of those people that like you don't fit in the box, you just get frustrated. You're like, wow, like it's sucks that all these industries are like a box. And
all these new millennials, though, the new millennials. We have the millennials, and we have
the Gen Z.
The Gen Z, which then, I don't know, do we start over on A after that? But I have no idea where we're going, the Gen Zs, but
who came up with the term millennials?
I don't know, but we're going to run the world. Who runs the world?
I'm pretty sure millennials came up with the whole, like, label generations. Because I was like, where did this come from?
I don't know. I have no idea. But the good news is that every younger generation is more sensitive than the last. And I love it because they're the industries, all of them. They're like, you need to fit into the box. And I'm like, ha, I don't fit into any boxes, which means everyone who's younger than me don't fit into that box either. Good luck. Good luck.
So we're in an age of learning acceptance and compassion and love and yes.
My tummy hurts.
So that was episode 6, part was it 5? I'm pretty sure it was 5. Oh no, I closed my book already.
Part we lost count. And
thank you for joining. Part 5 of the Motivation Podcast, everybody. Thank you for joining us. Thank you, Lindsey, for joining me as always. If you want to follow Lindsey and her personal Instagram and or not personal, it's more her business Instagram and her YouTube channel. Follow the links down below in the description. Don't you love how like professional and formal I get at the end of the podcast?
It's great. At the end of the podcast, you're like, thank you for joining us. We have links down, and you do the link, and you do the links down below and up above to join us forever and follow us. It doesn't matter how many followers we have. It's just that we really want a lot.
Like, share, subscribe. Don't just come and listen and then go on your merry way. Please, if you can.
To detach from everything except for us. Listening.
Share so you can share and spread more awareness, knowledge of mental health awareness, and help people live their lives to the fullest by sharing this podcast. You get what I'm saying? Just do it.
Oh my God, we're gonna do one on a full moon when we're hyped up. Oh my gosh, let's do one on the 21st. What is it? The conjunct Mercury, Sun explodes and we all die. What is it? The asteroid. What's happening?
The conjunction of Jupiter and Saturn.
That's going to be a nice little conversation. The planet of expansion is conjunct the planet of restriction. Yeah, we're all gonna die.
The Mayans did say that this was the actual year of 2012.
Oh, was it?
This is technically according to the Mayan calendar, 2020 is actually the year of 2012, according to the Mayan calendar.
Oh my gosh, that's brilliant and makes so much sense. See y'all in the next life. That's where it'll end.
We'll end it there. You guys will probably be dead by the time you get to this episode.
Death is a virtue to be celebrated. Now drink your Kool-Aid.
It's funny because I just watched a Dance Moms episode and it was about like
Going?
This episode was about cults and they like kept like referencing like drinking the Kool-Aid, and then in the end they all like have Kool-Aid after the competition. And the girls, they don't know what cults are and they don't know what the Kool-Aid is and they don't know what any of it means.
Abby's like, don't tickle your foot.
But yes, thanks everybody. Have a great